Good morning, Year 5 PSHE on a Monday morning here. I hope you all had a nice weekend and are ready to go for another week of home learning. For PSHE today, all you're going to need is a pen or a pencil. To complete your work, though, you might want some colouring pencils or pens because you might like to include a picture in what you've done. And if you want to make yours look like mine that you see later on, you'll need something circular to draw around. I just use the bottom of a cup. Okay, so let's get started with today, and we're going to start with total recall. I'd like you to look at completing these sentences by filling in the blanks. I'll read through them for you, and you might like to just pause as we go and think about what goes in each blank. So the journey of education and jobs in a person's life is called their what? And that one starts with C and ends in R. The golden value that links closest to thinking about our goals for the future. So which one of our 7 golden values is linked closest to goals for the future? Starts with A and ends in N. Another word for a job is a what? Starts with O, ends in N. Have a go at that one. And then the last one, a certain area of work, so something like education or medicine or farming, something like that. What do we call that? Starts with S, ends in R. Okay, here come the answers. So we call it a career. Someone's career is that whole journey of the different jobs that they do, and can include your further education as well. Excuse me. The golden value that links closest to thinking about our future, that's got to be aspiration, what we aspire to be and what we aspire to achieve in our futures. The other word for job there was occupation. And this certain area of work, like education or medicine, is called a sector. What sector you work in. So as Mrs. Lee said last week, we work in the education sector. You might have parents or relatives who you know which work sector they work in. Perhaps they work in the transport sector or in the medical sector. So let's recap what you did last week, and I'm going to turn this over to you really. I'd like you to spend a minute reflecting upon the career goals and dream jobs that you thought about last week. Maybe have a look at the poster that you made and reflect upon the skills that you thought you needed and think about what attracted you to that job. What is it about that particular profession or occupation that had that held that interest for you? Okay, so let's move on to today. Today we're going to think about what it's all worth. Why do we do this? Why are we focused on careers and jobs? So for most people, a job comes with a wage. The word wage there, wages or a wage means the money that you are paid to do that job. So the person that employs you pays you to do that job. And it might be you work for the government, like teachers or ambulance workers or firemen do, or perhaps you work for a company, so somebody who works in the local supermarket or works in a shop in town, they'll work for a specific company. Either way, they get paid a wage, money to do that job. This is either paid as a salary or through an hourly rate. So a salary is where someone is paid a certain amount of money for the whole year, and then that's just split up over they get a certain amount of it each month or each week. And however much they work that year, they still get paid the same amount of money. Some jobs come with a salary and some don't. Some are paid through an hourly rate. This is where you're paid for the hours that you work. So if you were to work in total 35 hours one week, and then next week maybe you've got changing shifts or what have you, you only work 20 hours, you wouldn't be paid as much that second week as you would for the first. So that's just a basic understanding of how wages work. So the primary purpose of a person's wages is to pay for life's basic needs. And the first thing that wages go on really are these 3 things that we don't really think about: shelter, a warm place to live, food, and things that we kind of need for health. So that might be everything from a toothbrush to things to keep our houses clean and hygienic. So they're sort of the essentials really. And this is what the first part of everyone's wages would go on. Now, in this country, we have something called a minimum wage, and the idea is that the minimum wage should pay for people's essentials, their basics, as well as then a few more things that they might need. Now, how much on top of the minimum wage you earn, well, that kind of dictates how much of the other things, the kind of luxuries you might be able to afford. Now, wages allow workers to access more than just these basics. Now, the other things can range from extra things like access to the internet, a mobile phone, just a television at home, right through to special treats like a foreign holiday or maybe a new car. And we know that some people's wages are so high they can afford incredible luxurious things, luxury yachts, helicopters, private islands, because in the world of work, there's a huge range of wages out there. Because the truth is that some jobs pay more. Certain jobs or certain occupations come with a higher wage than others. Let's see what we think about this then. Here, I've got 5 jobs. Get myself out of your way there. I've got 5 jobs, and I would like you to have a think about putting them in order from the lowest paid to the highest paid. This is based on an average because it may be that a police officer just starting their career as a police officer wouldn't earn as much as someone who was a chief superintendent. But this is an average wage worked out for these 5 jobs. Pause here and see, what do you think? Which is the lowest through to which is the highest? Right, well, here come the results. I wonder if it was what you thought. So the lowest paid of those 5, on average, is someone working in a supermarket. And the supermarket work is the kind of work that comes with that hourly rate that we talked about earlier. It's the kind of work where some people do this kind of job to fit around their lives. And it's good for people who maybe have other commitments that mean they don't want to work all day, every day. They just work in the evenings, or perhaps they just work on weekends. A mechanic, a little bit more, £25,000 a year. So it obviously would depend perhaps on the certain garage you worked in and the experience that somebody had. But a mechanic, someone who fixes cars and mends cars, earns about that much money. A police officer, up to £30,000 per year. So should we stop and put this in a little bit of context actually? What would £30,000 buy someone? What's that worth? Well, I think £30,000 is enough to buy probably quite a reasonably luxurious brand new car. A reasonably nice brand new car is £30,000. But we've got to remember that doesn't mean a police officer has enough to buy a nice brand new car every year, because of course they've got to pay for all those other basics that we talked about first. They've got to pay for their house, their food, and all those other essentials. What about a heart surgeon? Well, that works out at around £72,000 a year. What's that then? Let's see, what could we afford with £72,000? Well, we're going to go up to a very, very expensive car, maybe for £72,000, or we're about, I would say, maybe halfway towards a house or a flat. So the amount they earn a year is about half of maybe an average sort of first home or small home. So here's our list of 5 in order then, and there's that last one. The Premiership footballer earns on average £3 million a year. So it's quite a stark contrast, isn't it? Going from the bottom to the top. What do you think then? Do you think that's fair? Is that the right sort of wages? Is that the way it should be? I'll leave that one up to you. We're going to move on to think about the things that money can't buy, because a chosen job or profession isn't all about the money. And many people will tell you that they're in their certain job or certain area of work, not just for the money, it's for other reasons. Apart from financial gain then, why would someone choose a certain career or occupation? I'd like you to pause here and just think for a minute. What reasons are there that someone would choose a job other than how much it pays? What did you say? Did you say something like this? Their personal interest. They love doing it. Yeah, for most people, their job choice is kind of motivated by doing something that they'd like to do. Personally, I do my job and I love it. I tell my class I quite enjoy coming to school every day and teaching. It is something that makes me happy, and people across the country, across the world, would aim to have a job that they enjoy or that they love. A second thing to think about is giving something back. Giving back to society, making a contribution, making a difference, doing good. All these things, all these ways of saying it, it's essentially, can you make a big contribution to society. What if we looked at our list again then? What if I brought up those list of 5 jobs and I asked you to put them in order, starting at the top? Who makes the biggest difference to their community or society as a whole? Who gives the most back? Which job makes the biggest difference? Pause here and think about what order you might put them in. Right, well, I don't have a set of results for you because there is no correct answer to that question. It's difficult to measure and it's up to you. Different factors can contribute to giving back. So a police officer very obviously makes a big difference to people's communities. He or she keeps us safe, prevents crime happening, ensures that people are safe in their communities. So does that mean that they give back more than a mechanic? How would our lives be different if there was no one around to fix our cars? What about a supermarket worker? Do they give back? Do they make a big contribution? Now is a really, really interesting time to think about this. I would say that at the moment, a supermarket worker is worth so much more to society, to the community, than they were a couple of years ago, who suddenly realised that these people are, in this really difficult time, the people who are there providing us with the food and things that we need. Heart surgeon, people who work for the NHS, people who work for our National Health Service, they definitely make a big contribution. Now, more so than ever, they make a huge difference and contribution to our lives. So does that mean that our Premiership footballer gives nothing back? Well, there are different ways of thinking about it. In some ways, if we didn't have Premiership football, that would make some people's lives not so good. People love Premiership football. I know there are people in my class who are mad about their team. And taking that away and making it not the best football in the world would make a big difference to people. Also, some people would say, because they earn so much money from their clubs, they pay a huge amount of tax back to the country. So they make a difference that way. Like I said, there's no correct answer, and you might have your own interpretation of that. But today, I'd like you to spend some time now thinking about a career with a purpose, about a career or a job where someone gives back to society or makes a difference to people's lives. And I'd like you to create a job profile, a bit like an advert for a job, a particular job that you know about, where you think that person makes a big difference, contributes a lot back to our society, back to our community. You might link it to somebody you know. You might have someone in your family or in your friends who you know works maybe for the NHS or in our police force or in our fire service or in a supermarket maybe. Or there's something else that you've thought of that you think really links well to giving back and making a difference. I'm going to show you a little quick one that I've put together that kind of gives you an indication of what it might look like. So here's one that I've done. Just going to move myself up to the top corner. I've chosen to do one about an emergency department doctor, so someone who works in the emergency department of the hospital. Now, I've started off by saying what the person must be like. It must be kind, patient and helpful. I said then a little bit about what the job entails. You'll need to make quick decisions and act to save people's lives. I've just seen an apostrophe there that shouldn't be there. I'm already reaching for my pen. Look at that one there. An incorrect apostrophe. That's why it's always important to edit our work. Year 5 just spotted an error. ED doctors do a lot for all kinds of people. You would need to work day and night and like being part of a team. That's a basic start, and that's the kind of thing I'd like to see people creating. When you do it, why not think about some key questions that you need to answer in your advert? What do you have to do in the job? What sort of personality should the applicant or someone who does that job have? How will they make a difference to their community? What are the best and worst parts of the job? What are the worst parts of the job? Be honest. Say, I said a little bit in there. You'd have to work through the night if you wanted to work in the emergency department. So maybe come up with some of the parts of the job that aren't quite so great. This is a good place to pause your screen whilst you're completing your advert to answer those questions. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time for some more of our home learning. Bye bye, Year 5.